So today I have a very special guest, Rene Garcia from District 13, and he oversees Miami Lakes and Hialeah. And today we're going to be talking about a lot of interesting things that are happening in Miami-Dade County. And I hope you stay to the end of the video because there's some interesting things we're going to be talking about throughout this video. And Rene, you can introduce yourself so the audience can know who you are.
Rene Garcia, Miami-Dade County Commissioner, District 13, which is Miami Lakes, Hialeah, and PSN, which is Palm Springs North, which is the northwest part of Miami-Dade County.
Thank you for clarifying that. So can you give our audience a little bit of your background? How long have you been in government? And just so people have a better understanding of who you are as commissioner.
Look, I've started, it's a loaded question actually, because I started my political life when I was 21. I was very young. I started at 21. I started in the city council of Hialeah. Actually, I ran in 1995. I did not get elected. I don't like saying I lost. I say I did not get elected. And then I ran again in 1997. I stayed very much involved. When a lot of people told me I was too young to run, that I should wait my turn, I really was committed to trying to make my community a better place. And that's why I ran in 1995. Then I got elected in 97. And in 2000, I ran for the state house. And it's kind of interesting because a lot of people back then were telling me the same thing, that I was way too young to run for the house. I was 26 years old. I was 25 when I started. And a lot of members, a lot of folks in this community were telling me to wait my turn. And the more you tell me no, the more I want to try to do something. And that's why we got to the state house. And in the state house, I focus a lot of my time on healthcare issues, health policy, and appropriations and mental health and so forth. And then I ran for the Senate in 2000. It was just it was a pretty interesting political climb all the way through the legislature. And now I'm in the county commission.
All right. So I have a question. So you've been in politics for 20 plus years. You've seen a lot of iterations Miami has gone through. How do you feel about where Miami is currently now over the past 4 years that we've seen this explosive growth?
4 years? I could tell you that in the last 10 years, there's been explosive growth, right? Miami has changed. This is not the same Miami that I grew up in. I remember, born and raised in the city of Hialeah, but it's all the greater Miami area. I was talking about with Lauren today. I said, well, after we discover Miami, there's a lot of new things that we need to rediscover. But the great thing is that Miami still has this Miami charm, where people generally are pretty good to each other. They help one another, especially during times of difficulties. And we see that Miami's a place that people want to come to. Miami's no longer the hidden gem that we always knew. My friends and my family in New York will kind of make fun of us here all the time when I was living in Miami. But now those people that made fun of Miami are the ones that are wanting to move down. And it's because of them, they've driven up a lot of the prices for our own residents. But now they've discovered what Miami's all about, the beautiful beaches and the people and the weather. Well, the weather's a little warm, but in the summer, in the fall and in the winter, this is why you pay the big bucks to live in Miami now.
And that's actually very true. I've had a lot of friends that during college, they left, they got tired of Miami. Oh, I'm going to leave here. I don't want to come back. Fast forward now, they're in their late 20s, early 30s, and they can't even afford to even buy Miami anymore. There. So how is Miami-Dade County tackling the affordability crisis that we're currently facing? I mean, the housing prices have gone up drastically. A lot of residents feel that it's impossible to own a home. How is the county, what is their stance and how they're going to approach affordability?
Well, look, I think when you look at affordability, you talk about affordability, I think we all have different positions on it. But number one, it really is inventory. I think the reason that we have the issue that we have before us is supply and demand, right? There's a higher demand than we actually have supply. So the prices start going up, and obviously compounded with the people that come in from other states who they have, they have more spending dollars than we have, and their money goes a lot longer because they're coming from areas of, higher income, just a lot of higher inflation and so forth, and they come down here and their money goes a lot longer. So that has been a problem as well. So I think the issue that we need to start addressing is, number one, the supply issue. We need to make sure that we start building more affordable homes because, we talk about the big plan that we have, the big master plan that we have in place, but a lot of these homes that we're building are not really workforce housing or affordable housing. They really are more market rate prices. And I don't want to diminish that because we do need that. But we do need to start looking and trying to identify what workforce housing is going to look like. We define, we know workforce housing is whatever percentage of the AMI is, and we take a percentage of that, and that's the definition. But we every time they give me those percentages, I always ask, what does that mean in salaries? We need to make sure that our teachers and our police officers and our first responders, we have programs for them so they can stay living and working in the same community. We see right now that a lot of our first responders are moving elsewhere, not living in the same communities that they protect. The same thing happens with teachers. So I think the first thing is we have to identify what definition of workforce housing we're going to use to make sure that we do have housing for our workforce and not just call it workforce housing for the sake of calling it workforce housing. And then on the affordable housing issue, we have more properties coming online now. The mayor's been going. I've had a conversation with her not too long ago. Actually, now during these budget talks that we're in, I was talking to her and she's telling me all the ribbon cutting ceremonies that she's going to. So we're going to see more and more affordable housing units come online. And our director of housing has been doing an excellent job. He came from the private sector, so he's done an excellent job at using his private sector skills, combining it with his public sector dollars to try to put public-private partnerships together to ensure that we do have a robust affordable housing system or project here in Miami-Dade County.
I do have to say that your administration's been very, and not just yours, but the county as a whole has been very proactive with bringing more inventory online. We have thousands of condo units coming online as we currently speaking right now. But there's one piece of legislation that I feel is going to accelerate everything, is to live local. And for a lot of people who don't understand workforce housing, who may be watching this, workforce housing is not Section 8 housing. It's housing for teachers, professionals. And as Miami's evolving, and actually the whole state of Florida, but just for Miami-Dade County, how drastic is Live Local going to change the current environment here?
Well, look, Live Local has its pros and its cons. And I say that because, yes, it speeds up the process of building these condo units, but it also preempts local governments from having a say in how they create them. So I know a lot of my friends out there are going to be freaking out. Oh my God, he's talking about Live Local is not a good thing. It is, but I wish there was a little more catering to some of the local jurisdictions, some of the local, community features that may exist. Because what's happening now, and I'm seeing it, we're seeing buildings go up right next to single-family homes. And I think it's not a problem for the person who lives down the street, but that's a problem for all those residents that live right next to that building. So maybe coming up with some system that there'll be more of a buffer. I don't know what the answer is, but I'll tell you it has. Now, that's the bad part of it. Now, the good part about it is that, yes, it has expedited the permitting process. It's taking out some of the local jurisdictional barriers that exist because every jurisdiction has its different rules and laws, and developers have had to deal with a set of regulations in Miami-Dade County, a set of regulations in Hialeah, City of Miami, and so forth, and it becomes a little cumbersome, and it makes the systems it costs more for the entire system. But in itself, I see that when you're looking at the inventory crisis that we have in Miami-Dade County, you can say it has helped, but it's also has been a hindrance for those residents that have been living next to these empty lots or buildings that are going up. So I think we have to find a happy medium for that. When it comes to the inventory, yeah, of course it helps, but I think when it comes to the aesthetics of a community and what that community wants to be, sometimes it could be a little damaging.
You brought up a good point about how long it takes for permitting and processing and getting these projects off the ground. And certain zoning laws are different in, Hialeah, in South Miami, and other parts of Miami-Dade County. Is there discussion going on of how to basically simplify that process and make rezoning or permitting more efficient? I know Miami-Dade County, they do a really good job, but maybe for other municipalities, how can we kind of tighten everything up and reduce that cost?
Look, Miami-Dade does a pretty good job, but we can do a much better job. And I think it's important for us to have a streamlined process in place. Why do we have to call an expediter in certain municipalities? Why do we may have to hire an expediter maybe in Miami-Dade County to get things through? I think it's important for us to have a process in place when you submit your permits. You get back all the answers at that point. Don't wait for it to go to electrical, mechanical, or construction or go to any place to then get it returned with a different set of questions. That in itself sets it up. Why do I have to make a phone call to someone in a different jurisdiction? Doesn't matter, all you have to be in Dade County. Say, can you please look at this file? Why are these files sitting on people's desks? I know people are busy. I get it. But we have to understand that as government workers, government employees, civil service employees, we're civil service employees by the nature of giving back. We work for these individuals. They're the ones that pay our salary. And we always have to remember that. And that's why we have to make sure that we have a leadership in place that understands the importance of having dashboards, real-time dashboards, so we can know where things are coming in. You drop off your permit application, at least you have a dashboard in place that it tracks it through the system, so I can know where this application is, instead of having to call someone, hey, can you find this file for me? And go by the system and find it. And God, some cities are much more advanced than others, but the reality is that we have to start putting some attention and making sure that we expedite these permits. It doesn't make sense. It shouldn't take that long. And I think the easiest way is just send this permit application through all the different departments. Give me all the questions at one time, and then let me deal with it.
Do you think that incorporating AI, artificial intelligence, to create more efficiencies within the government, is that something that Miami-Dade County is open to doing?
Well, we're two different generations. I don't know about this AI thing, all right? You may love that AI thing, like ChatGPT. I freak out with that a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you about that. But I have to believe that there is ways that we can use AI. And maybe this is why I bring up the issue of dashboards, so I can know where this application is throughout the whole system and where is it getting hung up, instead of having someone do it manually and figure out who has it. I know they go through the systems, the computer systems. I type like a computer system. But anyway, they go through the systems themselves to figure out where they are. But we can do much better job. So look, if you believe in AI and have that confidence in that, I'm willing to look at it reluctantly, but I got it.
That makes me feel confident in everything going on here. As long as you guys can look at it, I think you can help out. So a big question that I'm getting asked a lot, surprisingly, I haven't even looked at this one that much, but is the American Dream Mall, is that what it's called?
The American Dream Mall, yes.
The American Dream Mall. What is going on with the mall? I did some research on it. There's been some delays, and apparently it's supposed to be now already completed, supposedly. But I wanted to hear from you, what's going on with the American Dream Mall, and what's the future looking like that project?
Well, the American Dream Mall is outside of my district. It's outside of District 13. It's in Jose Bermudez's district, District 12. Carlos Bermudez. Yeah, Carlos Bermudez. Yeah, Jose Bermudez. Jose Bermudez. No, look, I can't believe I just can't believe I messed up as JC Bermudez, but I just can't believe I messed up. I have a friend whose name is Jose as well. That's why. Anyway, hey Jose, what's up? Anyway, so what happened with the American Dream Mall is that because of COVID delayed everything. They had some issues there. The big mall, the Mall of the Americas up in New Jersey, I believe it is. They had this big mall there that sucked up a lot of the resources when COVID hit. By the nature of COVID, it's backed everything up like it did with all construction projects. There was a time there that we thought that it wasn't going to happen, but they since have been able to recoup their funds, been able to do investments, and are moving forward with the actual project. Right now, we're having some discussions at Miami-Dade County as it relates to the use of public dollars for the Dream Mall. I can tell you that there was a resolution that was passed when the American Dream Mall came to be that they couldn't use any public dollars. That's the first time I've ever seen any type of project like that restrict the use of public dollars. However, I do think it's important to recognize that we should use public dollars in the creation of infrastructure, roads, drainage, whatever the case may be. Because I recognize that whether be in favor or against this Dream Mall, which is coming, there is going to be an infrastructure capacity issue that we have to build out. And maybe through the use of some of the dollars that are generated there, the impact fees, we could actually use those dollars in that area to make sure that we help the residents. It's not just about helping the mall. It's about making sure we help the residents of that area with infrastructure in that area.
So when they proposed the mall originally, and then we look at it now, do you think that there will be any revisions to the current plans because of where Miami is right now with the amount of growth and especially with affordability, you think there could be some components in their workforce housing?
There could be. We could look at that. We haven't gone that far yet to start looking at that. But that area out there was never, I don't think it was ever slated for homes. But there could be a component that can be added for workforce housing. I don't see why not. We have to talk to the developer. I need to get more involved with that. But I mean, we're doing that right now. There's a project down south in Cohen-Higgins district that we just recently voted on, that we're looking at building workforce housing on a piece of county property. But again, what happens is, what's the definition of workforce housing?
Yeah.
And I think our workforce housing definition may need to be refined a bit, because I think some of these numbers that they're throwing out there for workforce housing are more market rate than they are workforce housing.
Yeah, I agree. I was looking at some of the threshold amounts for Live Local, and they look pretty, market rate. It doesn't look too low. But going back into something that you just said about county land, Miami-Dade County owns a bunch of land, huge landowners. Do you think that there's any opportunity to develop on existing county land to drive prices down so developers can build more affordable units, or no, it's not possible?
Well, that is the question, right? We have less land than you may think, because throughout the years, county commissioners have an ability to give surplus land out. And throughout the years they have, especially towards the end of their terms, they start giving out land like it was, the Wild Wild West. It's a craziest thing. Listen, and again, when I say that, I don't want to impugn or find that I'm thinking that they're doing anything unethical. It's following all the guidelines and rules. However, there's a window of time that they have to build something on. If they don't, it comes back to the county. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to allude to someone who's doing something nefarious. However, I think the use of county lands should always have a county purpose, a public purpose. And if you are going to take any lands from the county, what are we going to get back? Just like if you take any funds from the county or the state, what are we going to get back for it? Because this is taxpayer money. We always forget it's not county land. It belongs to Miami-Dade County. The residents of Miami-Dade County own this. And I get very frustrated, and you see that I vote against certain projects on the dais, is not necessarily because of bad projects. It's just because I don't see what return the county and the residents are getting. So, yes, to answer your question, what needs to be done, we have the urban line, boundary line that we have. We need to take a look at that line and see what we do with it, because we're moving it for certain things we move it, for other things we don't. We should have one policy in place to see when it is that we move it, and just have it already. Because look, you have the expansion area that was built into the line, the development of the line, so there's areas that we could expand to. Well, I think it's time to start having that conversation about using the expansion and seeing what we want to do with that line. And I'll tell you, I say all this, telling you that I'm a big protector of agricultural lands. There's no way, I think it's very important to protect our ag community, and I know there's a lot of farmlands out there, and I know a lot of our developer friends want to get their hands on those lands, but we got to think of our future as well. And what is the county going to look like in 20 years? When COVID hit, we saw what happened with supply chains. We need to make sure that Miami-Dade County has enough farmlands that we can take care of ourselves and take care of our people. We shouldn't be relying on other states or other countries to feed our own. And this is why, for me, the protection of those lands is extremely important. While looking at a plan that we could move a line, I think there could be a happy coexistence between both. And maybe first looking at the expansion area.
I think that's actually a great, I'm glad you brought that up, because that line, a lot of people are looking for that to be expanded. And I've been seeing some speculative buying from a lot of people, hoping that land gets expanded further out. I think it will unlock more inventory that people need, but the issue is the infrastructure. What's the transportation? For people who live down south in Homestead, if you wake up 5 minutes late to get on that expressway, you're in there for 2 hours just to get anywhere. So is there going to be a comprehensive plan? I know that the residents voted in that straw ballot for expansion of rail and all that. But is there going to be a specific plan of how to really expand it further out west? Because we do expand that line. Would a rapid bus make sense? does rail make sense? I know rail is very expensive, so just to have an idea.
Well, McGee, and look, first of all, I'll tell you, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I have voted against the moving of the line for a couple of projects, especially some of the major projects. And I did that because there wasn't a comprehensive plan in place for me, or I did that because the developers weren't able to give me the whole truth. They skim around who's coming in, who's not. So with me, you always work right with the truth. We'll figure it out and just tell me what's really happening. So yes, I have voted against moving the line. But again, because we have not had a robust, comprehensive plan in place to address both the needs, housing needs, and how do we protect our farmlands. So with that, I tell you now, when you talk about transportation down south, infrastructure is a huge problem for this community, for Miami-Dade County. And again, it's because we've kicked the can down the road so many times, where yes, there was a promise when Metro Rail was built that they was going to build a north-south corridor, and that never happened. So by them not building north-south corridor, the east-west one, which is out to FIU and Condo, that one becomes more profitable because there's a lot more movement from that side. So our county commissioners could never get into the same state of mind to vote for a plan in place. And I always say that we must always honor our commitment to the people. If we make a commitment to the people, then we have to figure out a way and not try to go around it. Oliver Gilbert has a proposal about to start the process on the north-south corridor, and I have, think it's time that we honor the people's will and get that done. But if we're going to continue to grow, we do have to have a better transportation system in place. And right now, we don't.
That's the biggest thing in my videos. Anytime there's development, which I agree with you, in order for Miami to grow, we need more development, we need more housing, we need more, infrastructure, we need more people to sustain the local economy here. But another thing that people ask me about all the time is the traffic, and then, the half penny tax. And the half penny tax is being used. It's being used for the infrastructure. I feel like there needs to be more federal funds to come in to really help, expand Miami.
Well, look, there was a time when Mario Diaz-Balart was head of transportation, and he was ready to bring dollars down, but we couldn't get our act together. And I remember that because I was in the legislature trying to help them push the feds to bring those dollars down here, so we couldn't do it. So I think now Eileen Higgins, she really is constantly fighting for transportation, and she understands. I don't always agree with what should come first or second with her, but I know that she comes from the right place of trying to do the right thing for our community, and it's important for us to come up with a plan. And we do need federal dollars. We absolutely need federal dollars, but we need to make sure that we decide what we want. We have the issue of north-south, we have the issue of the beach corridor, and we have the issue of east-west, which is out to FIU and the Kendall community. Look, the reality is that the corridor that's needed the most is the east-west corridor. And that's the one that'll be the most profitable one because that's the one that makes the most money. So we got to figure out what it is that we want, where we want to go, and then stick on that path because you have to have a plan. We have to have a plan and execute that plan because then what happens is that you have every year, and now you have term limits in Miami-Dade County. So we serve for 8 years. So every 8 years or 4 years, roughly, you have a new commission. So the priorities will change. I mean, it's time now to stick to that priority, invest in that priority, and move forward with it. So we don't get involved in that political back and forth as to what gets built, who said what, who didn't do what. So, and yes, the half penny tax. A lot was promised in that half penny, and this is why I think we need to honor our commitment to the people that voted for the half penny.
Yeah, because right now it's the traffic is crazy for everybody here, and I think that's going to be, if we are able to get our act together in that portion that you said, I think that's going to unlock so much value for this community that the growth is just going to be unstoppable here. That's just my opinion. So I wanted to go into basically what are your future plans, or where do you think the future of Miami-Dade's going in general? Where do you see it all?
Look, I think it's positive. I really do think it's positive. I have some issues right now with some of the administration issues at Miami-Dade County. We can look at some of our municipalities and some of the issues that we may have. But there's no doubt that we live in a great community. You know, there's no doubt that the people that are here are hardworking individuals that really want government out of their business and let me do what I need to do for my family. Government should be there to be a resource, not to be a hindrance. And those are the things that we can work on as a community. You were talking about what can we do to streamline the process. Those are things that we need to start working on, where our government, both at the state, that's not so much at the state, but at the local and county level, the state as well, but there's more interaction, a daily interaction with individuals on local government, that we recognize who our bosses are and who we work for and ensure the government is there to help. And that's one of the things that I would love to fix in our community in general. But the reality is that our community has come a long way. You know, all the sports franchises that we have, the Performing Arts Center, this beautiful bridge is coming up, iconic bridges coming in, all these new buildings. You drive through, actually, driving up in Hialeah by the airport, you look out, and it's amazing to see like a little Manhattan. You know, it is crazy. I'm driving down the city, I'm like, look at that restaurant. I'm calling my friend Fatima all the time. Wait, what's a new restaurant in place in town? Because there's so many. The food scene here has exploded. It's phenomenal. Michelin restaurants all over the place. You know, that's pretty exciting.
There's a crisis going on in the condo market, and there's a lot of residents right now who are fearful of what's going to be their future in the next coming years. Assessments are going up, insurance premiums, and there's a lot of things that are going to happen in 2025. And I want you to kind of like speak about that and what's Miami-Dade County going to do for these residents.
Well, look, I've been dealing with the condo legislation since I was in the legislature. When I told you earlier that I got elected in 2000, but since 2004, maybe I started dealing with condo legislation. And unfortunately, the condo lobby is extremely strong in Tallahassee. This is why it's taking us so many years to get things done. And one of the things that we did, we were in Tallahassee. My last year, 2 years in the Senate, we worked on transparency laws, making sure that associations were more transparent with the way they use their dollars, the paperwork that they had, their filings, who they're contracting out with, because we knew that for many years there was a lot of abuses on the condos. Fast forward to after Surfside. After Surfside happened, when I stood there and I saw this building on the grounds, I thought to myself, wow, people are going to legislate in haste. So I took over the legislation in Miami-Dade County. What I wanted to do there was obviously bring more transparency to the issues throughout the condo boards and so forth, because our condo policies are dictated from the state. But when we passed our legislation down here, the state took our legislation and added more to it. And the problem that we have right now is that we're having to have these reserves for these assessments and the maintenance of the building, compounded with the cost of insurance. And that, you see, it has created a huge problem, not only here in South Florida. It's been across the state of Florida, obviously more particular, stronger down here, but we're starting to see that legislation has been it's hurting different parts of the state. And this is why the governor was here recently to talk about condo legislation. What can we do, the pros and cons, and the best practices that are in place, because inventory is going up. I think it's now is the highest that we've seen inventory up, and the demand is going down. So we need to be very careful that this is not a trigger effect for our residents in this community.
Do you think that the state will have to get involved and extend that timeline, or no?
I think that there's no other way to do it. I think that, look, the county came up with a program that was $25 million of state dollars that were utilized to help residents for these assessments, these new assessments. They were able to apply for a zero interest loan to the county for up to $50,000. And that could bring some help to our residents. However, that money is dried up relatively quick. So I think the state can use that model as an example of what we can do at the state level, but they are going to have to increase the timelines. I just don't know how you wouldn't tell someone on fixed income, like, tell anyone, actually, workforce housing individual, what do you tell them that they have to come up with $50,000 within a short time frame? What else? What do you tell someone living on fixed income? Move? Is that the answer that we're going to give our residents? I don't think that's the right answer. I think we can do a much better job in legislating and helping our residents. And again, this is why you shouldn't legislate in haste and emotion, because then it gets too emotional and you look the practicability or the applicability of these laws. The good thing is, talking a lot like a politician, the good thing is that there is time to fix it and make sure that we learn from these mistakes so we don't do them again in the future.
For those who are living on fixed income, a good portion of them who've been living in these buildings for 30 years are elderly people. Do you think there's any resolution for them? Do you think there could be any, safety net that gets thrown their way if there is no other option, but they have to go through the storm?
No, there has to be. There's always ways that you can. There's always different ways of skinning a cat. I don't know. Can we say it?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
I can say skinning a cat. I don't know. Because today, this politically correct world that we live in, sometimes we can't say that. But there's ways that we can do this. Yes, and I think the focus always has to be on those individuals who have been living in these buildings, these condos for years, raised their whole family, or they lived in a home and they moved out there and they have it paid for, and they have nowhere else to go. That's the people you take care of the most. Obviously, government should be the voice for the voiceless, and who are the ones that have least of a voice? Those individuals, those elderly and the young. And this is why I have confidence in the legislature, even though that the condo lobby is strong. I do have confidence in the legislature that because of the public outcry, they would do the right thing.
Do you think that with these underperforming condos, that they're not able to make the reserves, they're struggling, do you think those are opportunities that a developer can come in and I guess make them whole financially, buy out the whole entire development, or there's no other way to work it out? I think that might be a solution there.
Yeah, to buy them out, that is some talk that, what is really happening in the system. You have these older buildings that have that maybe have outlived their existence, and maybe the way to go is setting it so something else can be built. It's hard for me to say that because these are people's homes, and I think government needs to be, like I said, government's not the answer to everything, but when government over legislates, then we got to fix. And that's why we have bills in Tallahassee, that we present the following years. Or not they do. Keep on thinking I'm still up there sometimes. Tweak bills, tweaking the legislation. And I've got to believe that this year, with the governor's involvement in this, the legislature will hopefully follow suit. The Lieutenant Governor was down here, Tom Fabrizio, who's a representative from this area who's been doing all the condo legislation. Rene Garcia, who has an amazing heart. She's really good people, tough cookie. She's a tough cookie nonetheless, really tough cookie, but she's a hard worker and has been a champion for condo laws up in Tallahassee.
I think that's the most important thing of all this is increasing transparency. Do you think with these new condo laws, because there's a lot of people who reached out to me talking about limited transparency. Some of these board members have been there for 30 years. Do you think these laws are going to really help residents?
Look, I'll tell you this. They should. Look, when I left the legislature, they reverted some of those rules back. Because obviously this is a problem with term limits, right? There's pros and cons to everything. The problem with term limits, they weighted me out. I reached the peak of my influence, was able to get some great things done. Me and Representative Pepe Diaz at that time had the most reforming condo laws legislation that we passed. We leave, they reverted back to some of those laws. But nonetheless, the one thing that they can do that will help is decentralize this. Right now, all these condo legislation, condo laws, homeowner associations go through Miami-Dade County. Give the locals a little bit of an ability to enforce some of these laws, regulate some of these laws, give the locals a parameter of what can and can't be done. Because right now, when you file a complaint with any of these associations, where does it go? DBPR. Senator Garcia just passed a bill now, giving DBPR some more money and some more teeth in as it relates to regulating these laws, but I still don't think is enough. And the only one way you can fix this is if you allow the locals to control the regulation of condo boards and the management of these associations. Because what's happening right now with our condo boards, they're raping the unit owners. And not all condo boards are bad. Not all management companies are bad. But not all management companies are good either, because the other day I found someone that told me, no, but if they have a management company, it should be okay. No, not all management companies are good because they get in cahoots with the condo boards or the condo presidents. And that's how they are able to do these things. But just think about this for a minute. They're a taxing entity because they pass assessments, but they don't have any rules to guide them or anything that jeopardizes for them not following the rules established by DVPR. So I think they are taxing entities like a municipality, and there should be better rules in place. And I think in Miami-Dade County, not recently we passed a bill for more transparency, meaning that these condo unit owners associations had to file their paperwork with the county so we can see their finances, their governing bodies, the governing records, and the governing boards. So if someone wanted to buy into, they can at least understand where they are financially. And even then, sometimes those are questionable.
What about for fraud? So there's a lot of people who feel their associations aren't doing what they're supposed to do, and they feel there's no voice because they have to go through DVPR, and that's a whole other thing. Will Miami-Dade County consider maybe opening up a task unit? I know some of these police sheriffs that are running right now, they're talked about it, but is that something that can be actually established?
One of the things that we should do is I think municipalities need to work together. If the state is not going to allow us some jurisdiction over this, we need to do a better job. Our local jurisdictions, local government and county governments, and the state attorney to have different investigators so we can go out, because there is a lot of complaints, but we just don't have the resources or the manpower to investigate every complaint. So usually you'll have something like the hammocks that happen. You have people clamoring, a lot of people clamoring, and then it took some time. It took the press, and it took about a year to try to get some changes done out in the hammocks. So the short answer is that local jurisdictions can do more, but we need the resources in order to enforce these laws, and we have to do it with our state attorney's office.
And before we end this segment here, I wanted to ask and touch upon your experience within healthcare, right? Because that was one of the main things that I was looking into, that you did a lot of changes here. Can you talk a little bit on that and how you see things evolving here in the healthcare?
Look, healthcare still needs a long way to go in our community. Make sure I'm one of those. I do believe that people should have a right to health access. And what that means is that I think it's innate in all of us to have health care. The government should provide access to individuals and so forth. But in order to do that, we have to save the money in the system. The system has become very expensive. I do think that the cost of pharmaceuticals is a huge problem for the actual system and even for residents. You know, the cost of health care in this country, I think, is we're the ones that are subsidizing health care in other parts of the world. And I say that because, especially with pharmaceuticals, we spend so much money on pharmaceuticals, and yet you go to other countries and the drug costs are minimal. So that's a whole conversation that we can get into in PBMs and so forth, my battle with the PBMs. But the reality is that at the local level, one of the things that, I've been working on the hardest is really mental health. Here in our community, we unfortunately don't have a cohesive mental health system that can help the residents of Miami-Dade County access services. Not pay for services, but at least don't access services. A lot of us know either a family member or a friend who's had a behavioral health issue, either a mental health breakdown or a substance abuse problem. And when we have those problems, it's not just the individual's problem. It's the family's problem, because it circulates from cousins to tío, to la tía, la abuela, ask for money here, do this. People will go missing or in jail and so forth. And it becomes a family problem. And I had a similar experience with a nephew of mine, and it was very difficult for me to access the system. People were pointing fingers everywhere, and I am committed to making sure that even though that we wrote the laws in the state of Florida when it came to mental health and substance abuse, when I had to use it, it was non-existent. So I realized there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And now we're in the process of getting this building, the old mental health hospital that we had here in Miami-Dade County, and trying to transform that into what Judge Leifman wanted to do, is a diversionary program. But I think it's more important for us to have a place where our families can access services as well. So I think there's a good combination of things that we can do with that building.
I think people forget that if you don't have a society that we're here to help everybody, uplift everybody out of where they're at, mental illness, which a lot of people who are homeless, I was reading a stat that a good portion of them have some form of mental illness or they have a drug abuse. If we can come together and solve that problem and push the agenda forward and help them and at least guide them and access, because I can't even speak on that, but to even know that it's such an issue and you personally went through it, I appreciate that, because there's a lot of residents here who are suffering through that and they need to have that type of access. So Renee, I want to say thank you for your time here. If you wanted to leave off with anything.
No, just thank you. I really appreciate you coming here to the office and having this conversation. Just know, look, my number one concern, my number one issue is really bringing some transparency to local government, to Miami-Dade County. We have almost a $12 billion budget, and it's very hard for us to find certain line items, certain issues and how we're spending money. Our priority should be that. They should be open and transparent to all the residents of Miami-Dade County, and that's my ultimate goal, and making sure that we have a system in place and a government in place that really watches out for the economic growth, obviously, because we have to continue to grow, and we grow through economics and buildings and development, but at the same time finding out what the social needs of our community are. And it's a nice balance that you have to find, but we can do that if we're more open and transparent with our people.
I agree with that. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.